I will tell you something you said made me think of a story and how sort of these things affect you and how they manifest, and in particular the sort of man up thing. Um, so the story goes like this: my I have an aunt who's 10 years older than me, and when I was little, I was about 5 years old. She was almost 15, so she was getting ready for her quinceañera, right? Her
Hmm.
Latino Sweet 16, right? But um, and I was her dance partner. I was her practice partner because they do all these big dances and whatever. Right? And so I was her dance partner. I was a kid, right? I was 5 years old, and we would put on the records in my grandparents' house, and we would dance, and we would have. It was great. I loved it. It was so much fun. Um, until one day, this guy who's at my grandparents' house, some friend of my grandpa's, I don't remember who it was,
Mm.
saw me there dancing with her, and he said to me in Spanish, basically, he said, "Ah, you look so pretty dancing." Basically, and in Spanish, words are gendered, right? So he used
Yeah.
the feminine and told me that, "Oh, you look like such a pretty girl dancing."
Jeez.
And I saw that my dad heard it and my grandpa heard it, and it was just an immediate wave of shame, right? Like, just I was frozen. I was mortified.
And so little.
Yeah. So when you think about the consequences, the actions that go after that, I never danced again.
Oh my
I
gosh.
never danced again. I refused to dance. I refused absolutely to dance for about 35 years.
Oh
I
my
couldn't do it. I
gosh.
couldn't bring myself to do it. I saw it as the most unmasculine, feminine, effeminate thing that a person could do. But I carried that trauma from that time. So when somebody that's the effect that it can have. When somebody says "man up," or things much worse than that, that's the lifelong effect that it can
Yeah.
have.
It almost creates like a self, like you said, shame, but
Yeah.
I'm sure he didn't even mean it to be that way. Like if I sometimes wonder if our parents knew, like if they looked, if there was a way for them to like look back and see the little things that they did that were so damaging to
Yeah.
the people we would become. I wonder like how that would make them feel if they could even address it or understand it.
It's really tough. I mean, you kind of have to have a little bit of sympathy for them. They're going through life for the first time
I
too.
say that too. Yeah. I
you
said that
know,
with a therapist on my show a couple of weeks ago, Therapy Jeff, and he was like, "No, they need to do better." I'm like, "Okay, that's fair."
yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with that either. But
Yeah.
I look back at my parents, and mom is very much a narcissist, and not in the sort of popular way, in the literal clinical way, and
Right.
that's really tough to grow up in that atmosphere, because you realize that the love that was given to you was not for you but for her.
Oh my
And
gosh.
just the toxicity that goes around that, and the my household, because of that situation and the dynamic between her and my dad and all of that, was a situation where everything had to appear nice. There was always a nice smile, and everything was okay. And you didn't talk about anything bad, anything difficult,
Jeez.
anything ugly. So add that to sort of the social pressure of being a man and having to act macho. And I'm in this particular enclave where that is just distilled, and that's
Well, and
the
your people pleasing you mentioned
and the
earlier is
people
coming from
pleasing,
that.
the whole, exactly. So there's so much to unpack, and I can see why people don't want to talk about their past sometimes, because that's where so much of the darkness lives. But at the same time, for me, it's been liberations on the other side.
Right.
So
Well, that's what I think. That's what I think too, particularly with men. I mean, I would say this is with anyone who, but let's stick to the context of men for this, the point of this conversation. But I remember I did therapy for the first time in my early 20s. I was probably 21 or 22. I was not ready. I didn't know what it was. I didn't
yeah,
know. I thought it was all done in the session, right? Boom, you're like, here's your medicine, here's your cast for your broken arm.
Right.
Boom. I didn't get very much out of it because I had no idea what I was doing. And when I tried again in my early 30s, I was at this point where, first of all, I had hidden my depression from, like,
Yeah.
no one knew. Even it took me probably 6 months to like actually say it to my therapist, who of course like already, but but I remember like I didn't tell partners, girlfriends, none
Yeah.
of that, and I would just have these bouts of where I would just withdraw or you know, be different, like just be acting different, right? And that causes so much problem, or so much problem, so many problems for your relationship or your
Yeah.
friendships or anything like that. But then what I think is so good, once I got in there and I started doing the work and I started thinking about why I was doing the things I was doing and how I could be different and what were the things I need to put boundaries on and stuff, it does suck in the moment. It sucks to look back and realize how much of your life you spent in a certain way of doing things, in a certain
Yeah.
pattern of thinking. But to your point, like the liberation on the other side, it makes it worth it. And to know that you can like really free yourself of so many of the things that you may not even know that are held up in you. And by the way, I'm of the belief that those traumas hold up and manifest themselves physically as well. So it isn't just the you know, the angst or the anxiety or the depression or the mental health challenges. So I just want to encourage anyone, like if it's scary to you and you want to avoid it, like that's when you should step into it. Because if you do the work, and I have this in my mission statement for the show, if you do the work, you can show up in the world with your eyes wide open.
Right.
And it's such a better way to live, even though it sucks while you're going through some of it. And there's a lot of forgiveness you need to do for yourself, for the people in your life. And that's hard. But if you do it right, it helps you see things more clearly. It helps you show up in a way with the people that you need in your life in a way that works for you. And it may not always work for them, but it works for you. And you can really just release yourself of so much of I always say it's like angst, this just
Yeah.
ball of tightness. I know I get it like in the pit of my stomach. And it's not easy work. And I think that's something that is scary for people too, is they know it's not going to be easy, but they only see, I'm like rambling now, but it's coming to me in real time. So bear with me. They only see the hard work, right? Because they don't know what it's like to live on the other side of the hard
Right.
work. That's what
That's
I
right.
should have
No,
just said.
I 100% aligned with everything you just said. I wanted to pick up on two things. One, that physical feeling, like the physical side, that how it impacts your body, that misalignment, that living with that angst, that grief in some senses affects you physically. And this is something really, really interesting. I work with an osteopath who, for a couple of years now, has been fixing my body and realigning my body and all of these things, which has been magical. And that's a topic for a different conversation. But one of the first things that he showed me is he showed me where in my body I carry my stress. And I'm somebody who, since my early 20s, has had lower back, like pretty bad lower back pain, and knee pain and that sort of thing. And so somebody who's a professional and knows your body, can identify the root of that. And that it's so powerful for him to have told me, this is where you're holding your stress, your grief, your anxiety. And it's so fascinating because now, as I'm doing, for example, I do a lot of meditation type work and intuition type work. I can feel myself focusing on that part of my body, and it really helps to align my mindset with my body, and to have those things sort of heal together is a really nice thing. So if you know, again, for the listeners, if you're somebody that you feel like you have chronic pain in a particular place, like my wife has chronic pain in the shoulders here, and you know, she tenses it up and
Me
she
too.
holds it there, you know. And so relating your mental state and your mindset to how your body is, and seeking to bring both of those things into alignment, is unbelievably powerful, actually, because you're leveraging the strengths of both of those things to heal you in a much more holistic kind of way, which I've become a huge fan of all of these types of things.